Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Today on the podcast, we're diving into a conversation that bridges the worlds of military, law enforcement, and first responders. A conversation that looks at what it really means to prepare the human mind and body for the pressure of combat, crisis, and trauma. My guest is Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, a man whose life's work has profoundly shaped how we understand performance under stress, resilience, and the psychology of violence. Lieutenant Colonel Grossman is a retired US Army Ranger, a paratrooper, and a former West Point psychology professor. He's an incredibly impressive person. He's one of the world's foremost experts on the psychology of combat and human aggression. If you've ever read On Killing or On Combat, just one of a few of his books, you'll know his writing has redefined how warriors, peacekeepers, and responders think about their work. His books have sold hundreds of thousands of copies all over the world. It was kind of crazy actually being able to have a conversation with him. They're on common reading lists for the Marines, for the DEA, and they continue to shape training and leadership programs across the entire globe. During our conversation, he'll tell you how he was recently over in Ukraine, advising and supporting on their leadership and development of their officers. But his impact doesn't stop with that page. Since retiring from the Army, he's trained thousands of professionals, soldiers, police officers, medics, and yes, firefighters, first responders, helping them to understand what actually happens when the heart rate spikes, when tunnel vision kicks in, when the body trembles, and when the mind distorts itself, and a whole bunch of other stuff. His work takes the mystery out of those physiological and psychological reactions and replaces it with a science-backed roadmap for survival, recovery, and growth. In our episode together, we explore concepts like the bulletproof mind, what it means to build mental resilience before the crisis hits. We look at stress inoculation, tactical breathing, and the science of how our sympathetic nervous system actually works, the fight or flight switch that interacts with the parasympathetic system that drags us back down afterwards. These aren't abstract ideas. They're the realities we live through when we're first through the door, the first to hold the line, or the first to witness tragedy. Also, we discuss the moral and spiritual dimensions of service. How do we reconcile the duty to protect with the weight of loss, with survivor's guilt, or with the difficult questions that families often ask? How do we build leadership cultures that emphasize empathy, communication, and the power of post-traumatic growth instead of letting trauma consume our people? Grossman's insights cut across uniforms and branches, so whether you carry a rifle, a hose, or a medic bag, the challenges of stress, recovery, and resilience are shared amongst all of us. What struck me most in our conversation today is the bridge between military combat and the everyday battles of first responders. Firefighters may not face gunfire on a daily basis, we know that, but we do face chaos, we face death, and high consequence decision making. Grossman's research shows where lessons transfer across domains, and just as importantly, where they don't. Stress inoculation from the fireground may help us in certain ways, but there are unique demands in every field that require specific training. That nuance is vital if we're serious about protecting and preparing our people. Beyond the science, we're talking about leadership, how to support teams in the critical hours after major incidents, how to create after-action reviews that don't just capture lessons, but actually help people heal, and how to instill a warrior code grounded not in mythology, but in honor, service, and protection of the vulnerable. Lieutenant Colonel Grossman has testified before Congress. He's advised presidents, contributed to leading medical and psychological associations, and stood alongside families of the aftermath of school shootings and tragedies that shook entire communities and entire nations. His words come from decades of service, duty, and walking alongside those who carry the burden of protecting others. So this is not just a conversation about combat psychology. It's about what it means to serve in today's world, which we all do. Anyone that's listening to this, you most probably serve in this world. How to confront the violence and the trauma without losing our humanity. And how do we lead people through the most difficult experiences they will ever face? So, whether you're a firefighter, a paramedic, a police officer, or simply someone trying to better understand the hidden costs of service, this episode is just an absolute goldmine. It offers lessons in resilience, leadership, and perspective that are as relevant on the fireground as they are on the battlefield. So without further ado, it is my tremendous honor to welcome to the podcast Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. I'll see you on the other side. US Army Ranger, paratrooper, and from the point of a West Point psychology professor, how do you view the chaos and the world of combat and trauma that we're now living in?
You know, I've had this incredible privilege. I did a lot of interviews before I retired in 1998 for my first book on killing. And, you know, I was a young para, enlisted in 1974, a sergeant, went to OCS in 79. And we had Vietnam veterans all around us. We wanted to know what combat was going to be like. And they wouldn't say. It's like this taboo topic. Mm-hmm. It's like, you know, if somebody came up and asked about your sex life and say, you know, how's it going, how you getting it on, and you wouldn't tell them. But if, you know, Masters and Johnson and some scholarly study came in, you might tell them, but even tell them the truth. Mm-hmm. So fast forward, here's Captain Grossman, Army Ranger, infantry guy, headed to West Point, and I'm conducting these interviews with these Vietnam vets and these World War II vets. And of course, all those World War II vets are gone now. This is in the 1980s. And they would tell me, things they'd never tell anybody before. And that became my first book. But then I retired in 98. I've been on the road ever since, you know, over 100 days a year, sometimes 200-300 days a year. And every day somebody comes up and gives me their experience in combat. I'm training military. Here we are, you know, we just had the anniversary of 9/11, 24 years of war, and the longest war in American history by far, and constant feedback from these guys. And then law enforcement. 2021 was the all-time record number of cops murdered in the line of duty in the U.S. 23 was a all-time record number of cops shot in the line of duty. Thank God, you know, that's not a record dead, you know, body armor, medical technology, saving lives. And again, every day people come up, well, it was like this for me, and this happened, and this happened. So nobody in human history, it just had the opportunity that I've had to interview so many people about the reality of combat. And I would tell you the primary takeaway is that we have learned more and discovered more in the last 20, 30 years than the previous 5,000 years put together. And about what really happens: tunnel vision, auditory exclusion, slow motion time, memory gaps, memory distortions, and then how, you know, the sympathetic nervous system becomes hardwired into the memory. You think about it and you re-experience it. The sympathetic nervous system kicks in, and that is not PTSD. It's normal. How you deal with it will decide whether or not it becomes PTSD, and how to kind of separate the memory from the emotion so you can think about it and talk about it without the sympathetic nervous system come along for the ride. These are all terribly, profoundly new insights. Before the Vietnam War, we didn't even have the term post-traumatic stress disorder. We didn't know this delayed dynamic and what was happening, and we've learned all of that. And it's a profound, important revolution. And one of my most recent books is on hunting. There, I've got 16 books in print, but on killing, on combat, and on hunting are like this triad. Yeah. And you can't understand combat without understanding the role of hunting. And you can't understand killing without understanding the role of hunting. If, as a species, we've existed for 24 hours, up until the last 6 minutes, all we did was hunt. But we were always in the middle of the food chain. There's things that hunted us and things that we hunted. And it's no fun to be hunted. We want to be the hunter. We want to claw ourselves to the top of the food chain. But there are so many people today that have chosen to be the hunted. They've given up on taking charge of their life. They've given up on doing the things they can do. I've got 3 dogs. They never killed anything but a tennis ball, but they're hunters, and we love cats. We love cats. They're unapologetic hunters. They're predators, and we love them for that. And we're happiest when we're in control of our destiny, and that's the core of resiliency. Is you identify the things you can control and do them. We talk about everyday carry and the things you can lawfully legally do and the things you can lawfully legally carry to be prepared for your moment of truth. Do you live your life in fear? Are you living your life in denial? Are you the hunted or are you the hunter? Have you taken charge of your life? Have you done the things you can lawfully legally do to prepare? And that's all at the core of this revolution of understanding how the mind and body works under stress.
Jesus Christ, brother! There's an introduction. Let's kick us off with that. There's so many things, and I had to pin my ADHD into the corner for a second there, not to interrupt you. But there's several threads I want to pull on there. But I think the first one I'm going to go for, which I think is relatable to everybody, you said around becoming the hunted, that this element of losing our autonomy, losing our own sort of individual just ability to take control of it reminds me of the sort of what we used to talk about in addiction and recovery all the time, which is, control the things I can control and have the wisdom of which, it's that sort of element of it that really speaks to me. And I think we are losing that aspect of high agency, that aspect of having the autonomy and having the self-belief and having the conviction to take control of our life.
Yes.
Is that a trained skill? Because I don't want to stereotype, but people that come from, I want to say people that come from a service background, but actually that's a bit too wide. Certainly people from your world, people from the frontline service, from the military, from the armed forces. Do people, is that out of design? Is it by accident? Is it out of luck? How do people develop that autonomy? You seem to, before we start our conversation, you have a tremendous amount of get shit done energy, if you excuse my language. Like your work capacity, and it's another thing I'm not going to go into that topic now, but I want to get on work capacity at some point in time. How have you developed that level of autonomy, that level of self-direction? This episode is brought to you in partnership with Godiva Limited. Godiva is one of the world's leading providers of specialist equipment for emergency services market. Godiva produces a comprehensive range of fire pumps, including vehicle-mounted, portable, and their cutting-edge integrated total water flow control system, SAMFlows. I've been using Godiva my entire career as a reliable pump on the fireground. It is such a crucial element of a successful firefighting team that you want to empower your crews with the very best, reliable, quality product. Reach out to our partners by checking the notes in the podcast. Now back to the show.
I coined this metaphor of the wolf, the sheep, and the sheepdog. And I have the U.S. government trademark for the term sheepdog. And it's mine, and it's viral, and it's taken off. And it really revolves around, we don't want to be the wolf, but we don't want to be the sheep, and we want to be the sheepdog. And we want to, like you said, take agency, take responsibility, do the things we can do, and let go of everything else. It's classic Roman Stoicism. It's completely compatible with Christianity. I think it really is compatible with Christian faith. There's this huge movement in Generation Z to move back to our faith. And I think that's a powerful thing. And this idea of, like you said, the serenity prayer, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't control. And that's all. That's most of things.
It's written on my wall just over there because I was a recovered addict about
and then the strength to change the things I can and the wisdom to know the difference.
I struggle with that daily.
It is. That's it. It's a daily struggle.
It's an iterative process. I always think of it like distilling. Like I don't drink, but alcohol. I think of it like a distillery. Everything you get, another cocktail gets thrown in every morning, and you have to distill that process. Whether it's an Eisenhower matrix, whether it's whatever it is. How do I, what's making the boat go faster? How do I take intentional steps towards the things that are my expressed desires and goals?
Yeah.
I think that is a dying skill. There is this sheep mentality. There is this lack of autonomy. This is, I am a victim of life. Like, but what is that though? Because I think that's really bad. I feel like it's worse in the UK, but I don't know if I would say that out of a bias.
Yeah.
There seems to be, there's more entrepreneurs, there's more leaders and stuff in the US. Entrepreneurs and millionaires are leaving the UK by the droves. It scares me.
I grew up in the martial arts. From my youngest days, it's what I wanted to do. It's what I wanted to be.
Well, you were inducted into the Martial Arts Hall of Fame, weren't you, as well?
Yeah, well, kind of cool, but mostly for my book. Mostly because I use my books. I'm always afraid that I got the ring, and some young guys say, "Oh, Martial Arts Hall of Fame, but I could take you,"
Okay, yeah. No, you're fine.
But it's this idea that I'm going to learn the skills that give me that so I don't have to live my life in fear. So I know how to respond.
You're better to have teeth and not use them than have no teeth.
And so if anybody listening here, if you wanted to seek that autonomy, I'd say one of the first steps is the martial arts. And to raise your children in the martial arts and to get them that opportunity. And it's so powerful because it teaches us not to be the wolf, not to be the bully. Inherent in almost all the martial arts is this: we're giving you a set of skills and you cannot, must not, may not use those skills.
But it's a controlled environment where you teach humility as well, isn't it? Because there's always a bigger fish in the dojo. There's always someone else who will put you in your place. I did martial arts and wrestling and jiu-jitsu and stuff when I was probably 16, 17, 18. And it was I was massive at the time, bigger than I am now. And it was the most humbling experience ever.
Yes.
And but discipline's been given like a bad marketing, I think. Discipline, people talk about the fire service, the fire department as like paramilitary, but even military and militaristic behaviors. I really have concerns that we are throwing the baby out with the bathwater when we say about the toxicity of discipline and things like that. Because I always say, like, if you don't have discipline will be asserted upon you by the world.
Oh, yes.
It's something that you have to embrace. The harder you are on yourself, the easier life is. And I'm not saying hard on yourself like, the Goggins of the world, run till your knees bleed or anything like that. Just small marginal gains on daily practices. How could I make a 1% improvement in my discipline of the morning?
We talk about the World War II generation being the greatest generation. And, they don't all commit suicide. They didn't all have PTSD. They had post-traumatic growth. We all know about post-traumatic stress. And then when it gets bad enough, it's post-traumatic stress disorder or post-traumatic stress injury. But not enough people really know about post-traumatic growth. Nietzsche said what doesn't kill us only makes us stronger, but Nietzsche stole that from the Bible. The Bible says the same thing over and over again. Romans chapter 5, we glory in tribulation. For tribulation work of patience, patience experience hope, and hope maketh not ashamed. The idea of being stronger from the bad things in life is not a new idea. What I call the pity party, waving the victim card. That's a new idea.
Pity party, not many people come and nobody brings presents. Like I let myself, when I have a big setback, I've had personal injuries and surgeries and stuff like that, I give myself 24 hours. Usually I don't give myself 24 hours, but 24 hours is the max. I'm like,
just wallow
go through the valley, because just blocking it all, you need to embrace the power of those emotions because they become the fuel, don't they, effectively? But how do you transition that into a more sustainable life process? Because I speak to people about like toxic, unsustainable fuels. I always think of it like a rocket. Like the burners only, they fall off after the atmosphere. After you've done the really hard bit to rip it off the launch pad, you need to transition into a more sustainable fuel. Because a lot of my injuries, personal setbacks, damaged relationships have come from and very effective but toxic fuel. Like people have hate, envy, revenge, bitterness, very, very potent. Toxic fuels, not good long term.
This comes back to letting go of the things we can't control.
Okay.
And everything in the past is done. It's done. You got to let go of it. Got to turn it over to higher power. Now that's hard
Hmm.
because it's a survival mechanism to remind us of those failures.
Hmm.
It's a survival mechanism. Say, when you went down that path, our hog got killed, and we don't go
Hmm.
down that path anymore. And when you went over here, you made everybody in the tribe mad at you, and you almost got kicked out of the tribe. So we don't go over there anymore. We don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And those are survival mechanisms, but we've got to have a means to deal with them to be
Hmm.
healthy. And, I just pray. I mean, every day, over and over again, something reminds you of something negative. And
Hmm.
say, God, watch over me, protect me. I do nothing without you. And then move on, let it go. Have a ritual, a mechanism. And that's one of the reasons why faith is one of the pillars of resiliency around the world. And we think we can hack it on our own, and that's fine. But you've left one of the great resources that enables you to sustain yourself as part of the pillar of resilience, to hand these things over to, and we kind of started, both of us locked onto that serenity prayer,
Hmm.
but it began with a 12-step program. It began with
Yeah.
Alcoholics Anonymous.
Hmm.
It was
I
integral.
worked through Narcotics Anonymous, but Alcoholics Anonymous is far more globally known. Yeah.
Yeah. And at the heart of Alcoholics Anonymous is this higher power. To be able to give things over that higher power. You don't have to define what it is,
Hmm.
but it's part of the process. So it's interesting because AA, as a West Point psych professor, going through the training, my grad degrees in counseling,
Hmm.
and AA has helped more people than all of the counselors, put together, and it pisses them off.
Is there an
They got
element
to
of
deal with it.
authenticity and shared suffering
Yeah,
that comes with AA
yeah,
as well? There's
yeah,
a kind of, you've got to see it to be it analogy
yeah,
where I feel like I'm heading into a cave and this person is not at the end of their journey, but they have found a light somewhere and they have recognized this as a tunnel and a process and a journey. And there's something about that. And I wonder if that's why people such as yourself, when you speak, when you consult on leadership and trauma and stress, people listen to you because you've kind of been there and done it as well. But all of this, you must have had a tremendous amount of reflections yourself. Because let's cycle back for a second. You you're an army ranger. You're a paratrooper. How how can we teach people some of these lessons, whether it be resiliency, whether it be dealing with stress, dealing with trauma, with it? Because we don't want everyone to become an alcoholic to
yeah,
realize the mindset that can come from the power of a setback like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
You don't want your children to have had to gone to conflict to
yeah.
come out, hopefully the other end, lucky fingers crossed, got through the narrow gap, survived it physically and mentally, to have had these kind of revelations.
Yeah, and it's an online process. I guess to me, I'm 69 years old.
Hmm.
I'm on the road well over 100 days a year, and I want to keep doing it for another 20 years. Willie Nelson is
Mm.
92 and on
Ah,
tour and singing every day. That's who I want to be and grow up without the drugs,
yeah.
And and by the time we get there, 90 should be normal. I mean, we should plan for that. We should plan for that. And the neatest thing about being 69 is to say I'm a little bit better person than I was a couple of years ago.
Mm.
And the heart of it. Now this comes back to the core of Christianity. Our mission. Jesus said, "A new commandment I give you, to love one another as I have loved you." And when asked what's our mission, to love God and love people, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. To truly try to make every person you meet smile. To truly try to be kind, and it was one of the nicest things ever happened to me. I was on a flight to the East Coast just this week. I'm at Southwest Airlines. You're standing in line. You got to pick your number, and we're talking, and the lady in line in front of me says, "You just kind of make everybody around you happy and feel good." And I said,
Mhm.
"Thank you. That's one of the nicest things anybody has ever said to me. Is just to be kind and gentle and wise and strong. To
Mhm.
know that." this is somebody you can lean on. This is somebody you can depend on, and to grow into somebody that's wise and gentle, and our goal is to love, is to love people. That's our mission on earth, and to try to just have that gentle spirit to everybody. And you failed this time with that guy. Well, I'll do better with the next one. And I think you got to have a goal in life, and your goal has got to be outward focused, to make everybody around you smile, to make everybody around you a little bit happier because they saw you, because they've been there with you, and teasing and joking. I'm a cop. I train cops. I'm a son of a cop, and cops and firefighters, we always have a great thing, the life of a firefighter. You sleep till you're hungry, and then you eat till you're tired.
Yeah.
Repeat as necessary. But what really bothers cops is firefighters get paid to sleep, right? Only firefighters and prostitutes make money in bed, right?
Very true.
We're kidding. We're joking.
No, you're 100% right.
But it made you laugh. It made you laugh. You get a kick out of it. Cops and firefighters, we tease at each other, but we have deep and profound respect for each other. But you know what makes a great first responder, truly, truly great firefighter, is empathy.
It is beyond a privilege to be able to bring the Firefighters podcast to you, and we are so grateful for every single person that supports, listens, shares, and follows our journey. But here's the honest truth. It takes a colossal amount of time and work to keep the podcast going. And to help us keep doing it, create more, reach more guests internationally, and make the podcast sustainable, we're asking for you to help. And to do this, we've set up a Patreon page. Now, by joining this, you'll not only support the future of the podcast, but also gain access to exclusive benefits. Now, if you've ever wanted to meet a member of the podcast, buy us a beer, buy us a coffee, and you think anything you've ever listened to on the podcast has been worth £3, that's basically what we're asking you for. By joining our Patreon community, you will get access to every single full episode archive we have ever made. Now, hundreds and hundreds of key documents that we've got in there on fire behavior, firefighter health, cancer risks, instant debriefs, and so much more. A growing collection of valuable resources to help you learn and grow. Your support in whatever way, dropping it in the WhatsApp group, sharing it on the local newsletter, whatever it is, it's incredibly valuable, and we really do support it, and we need it to make it a long-lasting resource, that legacy resource we always talk about for first responders, firefighters, and everybody everywhere who's ever been interested in joining the fire service. Now, if you're already supporting something, as many people do, it's totally cool. You can still access the podcast for free, and you'll always be able to access all the new episodes for free, but we're asking for your help to make this sustainable. And we want to keep growing, we want to keep sharing the insights, and we want to keep showcasing the incredible work happening in our community and our sector. So if you feel like you want to join the Patreon crew and help us make this possible, head to patreon.com/TFFPC or check the link in any episode podcast notes.
Empathy says, what if it was my family trapped in that burning building? Empathy says, what if it was my spouse being assaulted? Empathy says, and empathy is love with its shoes on. Empathy is love in action. And listen to that. Jesus said, greater love is no one than this, that they lay down their life for their friends. So what manner of love is this? That first responders will die for strangers. What manner of love is this? That firefighter will go in that burning building for somebody that they never even met. But what I tell people is, they're not strangers. They truly are your friends. You will die for them. If we love them enough to die for them, do we love them enough to be kind to them? Do we love them enough to be compassionate to them?
And to seek to want to understand them as well.
Yeah, in their moment of greatest need. I teach about de-escalation, and I found so wonderful. A lady said the 3 most important sentences you will ever say, and the first one's the most important one. And I mean, when people are angry, when they're frightened, they are not rational. Yeah. And if you want that verbal jujitsu that cuts right into the heart of the matter and gets them thinking, It's this sentence. Please tell me what's wrong. Somebody wants to hear my story.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody wants to know. Somebody cares. And they go from fear and anger to talking. And that's what makes us human, is talking and verbalizing. That's something that no other entity can do. And let them vent and be there and listen. And then the next sentence, the first one's the most important. An angry employee, a hurt grandchild, a hurting spouse, please tell me exactly what's wrong. Please tell me what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And the second sentence is, I'm sorry this is happening. And then it's true. This is a fellow human being that's in pain. But the final sentence is, I will do everything in my power to help you.
Mm-hmm.
My wife, I'm 100%. My wife has got health. The old age is the hardest part. That's why they save it for last, and from the ripe old age of 69, advice, never trust a fart, And I tell my audiences that, and one cop says, well, I'm 50 and I learned that the hard way. But I asked my wife, sweetie, tell me just exactly what's wrong. And she said, thank you. I'd never put it like that before. I said, I'm sorry this is happening. We will do everything. The one place we'll break the bank, the one place where we'll go into debt, whatever it takes is your wellness.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do everything in our power to help. But those three words but I tell people, listen to that verse again. Greater love is no one than this. They lay down their life for their friends.
Mm.
But there are many ways to lay down your life. There are many ways to lay down your life. And sometimes the greatest love is not to sacrifice your life, but to live a life of sacrifice. Not to sacrifice your life, but to live a life of sacrifice. There are many ways to lay down your life. And that's what first responders do. Live a life of sacrifice.
I wonder, and sometimes I worry, what is that drives people that come to this sector, in our sector of service, if we zoom out holistically to the wider sector of service. What is it that makes people want to do that? Because you were effectively committing to pouring from your own cup. And people don't join it for the income. Most people don't. They join it for the outcome. They kind of join it for some sort of purpose. But I do worry about things like empathy fatigue is sometimes something we speak about. Paramedics struggle with it a lot. I think a lot of first responders struggle with it because you going back to your wife and her explaining a problem with her day, and you've just come from cutting three dead bodies out of a car. It's just difficult to transition from one end of that spectrum to the other.
Compassion fatigue, empathy fatigue. It's real. It's real. And you got to go back to the well and recharge every day. And
I don't think we're doing that enough.
No.
That's what I think we're not getting right.
No. And that's where it really comes down to faith.
Okay.
And you can't help but ask this question. How could a loving God allow these terrible things to happen? Your job is to see every terrible thing that happens. And to hang on to the idea that there might be a loving God out there in the face of all this stuff is hard. It's hard. And so the answer is one of the most important things in the universe. And the answer is that your loving God would not make you his puppet. He would not. He does answer prayer. He does intercede. But have you ever heard, if you truly love something, let it go. If it comes back, it's really yours. But that's how much God loves us. He loves us enough to let us make our own decisions. And that means a lot of people make really bad decisions. And a lot of really bad things happen. And here's the key. You say, God, why don't you do something? He said, I did. I sent you. God really, truly has no other hands on earth but ours. He has no other tool on earth but us.
Hear about the person stuck out at sea, that old joke.
Yeah.
And then, the surf boat comes along and it says, jump in, we'll help you out. And they said, don't worry, God will provide. And then the helicopter comes and says, we've come to get you. And it's, don't worry, God will provide. And then the battle cruiser comes along finally. And he says, no, God. And then he dies. and gets up there and says, God, why don't you save me? He's like, I sent a speedboat, a helicopter, and a battleship.
You idiot,
Jesus.
what do you think?
You know, what else do you want me to do? So there is an element of autonomy to this, isn't there?
Yes.
I remember there's another one. I'll not bore you with dad jokes all day, but, preacher walking down a country path, sees a beautiful garden, a man tending to it, and he says, oh, God has blessed you with a beautiful garden. And the man says, well, you should have seen what it was like when God had it all to himself. There is an element that we have to play in this, isn't there? Because total transparency, I don't practice any regular religion, but when we talk about those elements that are within our sphere of control, you've got to have a plan. You've got to have a plan for your life. You have reached a remarkable achievement of work and rank and seniority and achievement and service. An element of that, a massive, potentially a huge element of it, will have been due to your faith. But you have had to play a significant hand in that as well. And I'm not trying to blow smoke up your behind it, but there's people have got to grab the steering wheel of their own life, haven't they?
It's funny you'd say that. I really do a lot of work in the military strategy and tactics. As one of the leaders in what we call maneuver warfare. And there's a couple of kinds. There's one tactic that says, we're going to go down Avenue Approach A and blow our way through. And then another approach that says, no, we're going to send recon out in every direction. And the one that works is the one we're going to reinforce. And that's always been my life. I've got, they said one of my strengths is that you're diversified. I speak to schools, I speak to cops, I speak to military, I write books on this, I write books on that. And the ones that are successful, you do more of that. And the things you're good at, you do more of that. And I got pretty good at speaking, and I got pretty good at teaching. And so you do more of that. I don't think you should trap yourself into saying, I got to go down this path. I think you've got to go through life saying, I'm going to try a lot of things, and the things that work and the things that give me greatest satisfaction, that's what I'm going to do more of. And that's the whole life of, it's called recon pull as opposed to command push. The recon pull, you just send out reconnaissance in every direction. And the ones that are successful, that's the ones that you reinforce.
Someone said it to me about business, about fire bullets, not cannonballs. Do you know what I mean? Fire lots of bullets and see which ones hit before you start firing cannonballs.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Test a lot. Yeah. Have strong views weekly held. Be ready to swallow your humility and go, row.
Yes.
There's pivot. Yeah. There's a constant pivot. You've got to be agile.
There's only going to be one path, Then the other half of the equation is, my wife and I, we just had our 50th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I tell people she was my high school sweetheart. She was 15. I was 17 when I proposed to her. I tell people we are from Arkansas, right? So, and 2 years later, she flew out to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and married Private First Class Grossman. We got married on a 3-day pass. And the deck was stacked against us. If you're married at that age, it's not going to last. Well, it's lasted 50 years. But it's a matter of saying, we're going to make this one work. This is one that it's got to work. We're going to make it work. We've got kids and we've got things we've got to do. We've got to make it work. And too many people give up too easily on the things that are important. And so, what do we pray for? We pray for more faith and we pray for more love. And here we are after 50 years, and every day I bite my tongue and I don't say those things, and I don't get angry, and I don't say those things, and then I think, oh, it's really a good thing I didn't say it. That turned out all right, At the end of the day, I said, God, thank you for the things I didn't say. Thank you that I didn't say that. And it's one of the most rewarding and wonderful things in my life is this companion of 50 years. But it's a product of an awful lot of hard work and an awful lot of just biting your tongue and not saying that and working hard and so many little things, and why would we fight over that? What difference does it make? Go for it. Good for you. All right. You want to do that. That's good. People just want to nitpick at each other and why does it matter? They have, they have autonomy. They can do what they want to do if that's what makes them happy. I want to fix her a cup of tea. Well, she wants it like this and this and this and this. Well, fix your own damn tea, right? No, that's not right. That's not the right answer. I volunteered it, so I'm going to do it the way she wants. And she's got the right to have it exactly the way she wants.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together.
And so it's just so it's this balancing act by saying these are the things that we're going to make work. We're going to make this and happen. The kids and there's certain things in life where you've made a commitment and you do your best to make it work. Now, if it doesn't work, forgive yourself and move on. But I think one of the keys, I do a lot of work with military leaders and law enforcement leaders, and I tell them that being a better human being is about self-control. We got the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, and we got fight and flight, feed and breed, also called rest and digest. And what makes us human is controlling. We control fight or flight, right? A fight or flight hormones kicked in. I choked him out and killed him. I couldn't help myself. Okay, we understand. No problem. No. Now, in the animal world, that's the way it works. If fight or flight kicks in, you kill them and you won. In our world, that's not going to work. And then, one of the first things we learn is not to crap ourselves, right? That's hard. You ever potty train a kid or house train a dog? That's hard. But that's what makes us human, is the autonomic nervous system, right? Sympathetic, parasympathetic, fight or flight, feed and breed. And then one of the things we learn is after a traumatic event, sympathetic, fight or flight, and the parasympathetic backlash is on feed and breed. And there's a powerful drive to sex. There's a powerful drive to reproduction in the face of death. We see it with crime victims, and we see it a lot with first responders. And so many first responders get in trouble every year for having sex on the job, and they're blindsided by that, right? You got to crap at the appropriate place in the appropriate time, and you have sex at the appropriate place in the appropriate time. But we're blindsided.
Is that a case of just burning off that post-adrenaline dump? Is that what's happening there?
Well, there's more than that. It's a matter of focusing it.
Okay.
We've got that adrenaline dump that's fight or flight. Well, we can't do it. So that kind of brings me to the point about losing your temper. Remember, the only thing in the universe you can control is yourself. That's the core of resiliency, right? And so you don't lose your temper. You give it away. It's the only thing you can control. Now, that's really easy to say. It's one of the hardest things in life to do, is to not lose your temper. But it's one of the best things to work for and to strive for, is to not lose your temper. And I tell people, there's never an appropriate time to crap yourself. And there's never an appropriate time to lose your temper. And I was doing some work in an Air Force base, and a colonel brought me out, and I told him, oh yeah, I'm cool as a cucumber, but at work, but the family just drives me crazy. Well, if the truth is that if the day-to-day pissant things make you lose your cool, when things are going to hell and people are dying, you don't have a prayer. So one of the steps in resiliency, the bulletproof mind, is to nurture an environment of quiet professionals. The laconic Spartan, the stoic Roman, the inscrutable samurai, the stiff upper lip Brit, and today we talk about the quiet professional. Those are all different ways saying the same thing, self-control. Nobody respects your temper tantrum. Nobody ever respects your temper tantrum. There's never an appropriate time to crap yourself. And there's never an appropriate time to lose your temper. Oh, it's an act I put on. I kick and scream and shout and get their attention. No,
I heard a parenting analogy around that a little while ago where they were like, Mum's a screamer.
Hard.
You've probably heard it before. Like, Mum, you drop a thing, she screams. You leave things out, she screams. But then when the kid's about to wander into the road and Mum screams, nothing happens because Mum's a screamer. Do you know what I mean? If you can't you can't crap yourself about everything because then there's nowhere to go from that. You've got to be that quiet professional, as you say.
I'm ashamed of some of the things I did as a father. We were children with children, but we learn and we do a better job. That's why we make better grandparents. I ask people, how many of y'all got kids? How many of y'all looked at your parents with your kids and said, are you the same ones that raised me? No,
I say that all the time when I see my dad with my children, and I'm just like, why didn't we ever do that together? Why didn't we ever? And he was busy.
It's called maturity, and we want to get it as fast as we can. We want to get it. And it's called maturity. And so it's a lifelong process of striving to be a better person and to take all the autonomic nervous system, fight or flight, feed and breed, rest and digest, and bringing them under control. And that's what makes us human. And what makes a better leader is being a better person, and being a better person is about self-control. Today we talk about the quiet professional.
So inevitably, at some point in time, things do not go to plan. I'm sure it happens in your world all of the time. So talk to me a little bit around those AARs, those critical incident debriefs, that sort of heal and teach element that helps us sort of capture lessons and lower that long-term psychological cost.
Yeah. The AAR is so terribly important.
So for people not familiar with the vernacular, these are after-action reports.
After-action review. You call it a debrief. You call it a hot wash, an after-action review. In the military, in a training event, the majority of the learning happens afterwards in the AAR. The majority of the learning doesn't happen in the event. The learning happens afterwards when you process it. And everybody talks about what happened and what they saw and what they did and what they learned. And then the next person and the next person. And then we come back around and we process that. But in an actual life and death event, it is so vital that we also learn the lessons. But now it comes to another whole level. In a life and death event, you have tunnel vision, things right in front of you that you didn't see. You have sensory focusing. There's sounds that you did not register. Just auditory exclusion. Often the eyes turn on and everything.
Those perceptual distortions on our reflections.
And then you actually have slow motion time. I've had hundreds of people tell me they can see the bullet in combat. It's like airsoft or paintball. I've had dozens of people tell me I could see the bullet leaving the barrel. I could see the bullet enter his body. The slow motion time. And then you have memory gaps. Half of all trained seasoned cops have these memory gaps. And then you have perceptual distortions, memory distortions. 1 out of 5 just flat remembered something that did not happen.
Yeah. You hear a lot of that around the 9/11 stuff. And even when you see police reports and they go, there was just me and you in the room, just me and David. And I'm like, there was 3 other people there.
Yes.
I just don't remember them.
Remembering things that did not happen. What's another word for that? Hallucinations, lies.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting here right now and suddenly something, blackouts, hallucinations, that would meet every definition of a psychotic episode. Just those things by themselves would scare the daylights out of you. Yeah. The fact that you're in a life and death event is bad enough without your body doing these weird and one of the things nobody warned you about. But first, if you've been warned, it might happen. And that's all out of my book on combat. That's the most important one right there. Ukrainian Book of the Year Award, May and June of last year, they brought me out to Ukraine to train the troops, working out of this book on combat. I spent a summer vacation in the war zone, training the Ukrainian troops. I'm working out of this book right there. And what was at the heart of it was this, what I'm talking to you about, and then what we do is we gather together afterwards and we fill in the memory gaps and we sort out the memory distortions. I don't need no stinking debriefing. We believe you, but you're the only one on earth that look your buddy in the eye and say, no, dude, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. And if you know,
that's what I think with our debriefs, because in ours, like, so I'll be the incident commander, there'll be a driver, a pump operator, someone's on the tools, someone's in the building. We're all looking at this Rubik's Cube from a different perspective. Everybody had a different lens on what happened then.
Yeah. But here's the key. Now, if you start talking about it and the sympathetic nervous system starts kicking in, you start losing control, you start choking up, you start becoming physiologically aroused, stop.
Okay.
Take a big swig of water. And one of the very best tools we have to pull you from sympathetic to parasympathetic, from fight or flight to rest and digest, is that big swig of water.
MSA are supporting us on today's podcast, and I chose to partner with them because I've been wearing this stuff for nearly 20 years, and they are the global leader in development, manufacture, and supply of incredible, safe products that really protect people, not just our communities out there, but also first responders, most importantly, all over the world. Get yourself over to MSA and have a look at it. The high-performance protective clothing for emergency services responders. They also partner with us on the UK Pink Firefighters. It's because we love them. The helmets with the reflective visor, the F1XF, absolutely epic helmet. And not forgetting how they improve firefighter safety through their connectivity in the connected firefighter platform. MSA are always pushing the envelope, and it's a real privilege to be able to continue to grow our partnership together. So whether it's your PPE, your bunker gear, your helmets, your SCBA, your thermal imaging, your Luna, or your portable gas detection, both of us know that this equipment needs to work. It needs to be high quality, reliable, and dependable in the moment. And that's why I use MSA, because they know what's at stake.
The essence of healing from PTSD is to separate the memory from the emotions, to talk about it, to think about it, without the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, coming along for the ride. And
how can people do that in peer-to-peer? Sorry to interrupt you, because most of this, they don't want to hit the big red button of HR and get a counselor and show the rest of the department they're struggling.
Part of the healing. You may have heard of CISM. I teach at their international conference in Baltimore most years, and we do the debriefing, but everybody has that bottle of water in front of them.
Okay.
And every time you start to lose it, you take that big swig of water and you regain. That's why talking over beer is so healthy. Whiskey's made for sipping, wine's made for sipping, beer is made for gulping. And you're talking over a pint and you start to lose it and you take a big swig, you regain control and keep talking. Just physiologically, psychologically, one of the healthiest things you could do until you get drunk, and then it gets counterproductive. But this business of but here's the key: if you can't separate the memory from the emotion, there's other ways besides that. The breathing exercise, you can always have
box
water
breathing.
You can always stop and breathe. But one of the tricks, we're really, really good at treating PTSD. Do get help. Go get help. And we're really good. You'll come out the other end with post-traumatic growth. One of the tricks is EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. And what you do is you follow a visual stimulus. Now, the midbrain, the autonomic nervous system, right? Sympathetic, parasympathetic, together forms the autonomic. I call it the puppy inside. And the puppy, fight or flight, feed and breed, the puppy can only do one thing at a time. So while you're following that visual stimulus, you're able to talk about it and think about it without the sympathetic nervous system coming along for a ride. And just one or two times, just one or two sessions of EMDR can extinguish that link between the memory and the emotions. Another mechanism is we've got a nerve block. It's a ganglion nerve block, but sometimes called a sympathetic nerve block.
Okay.
Because you get an injection that shuts down the nerve that causes a sympathetic and parasympathetic responses. And now you talk about it, and that sympathetic response is not coming along.
Mm.
And by the time that nerve block has gone away, you've completely extinguished the link between the memory and the emotions. So all of the methods of healing that we have out there all revolve around the same thing, separating the memory from the emotions. But the most important way is to know up front that it's going to happen. And when it happens, just nip it in the bud right up front. To take a deep breath. Right now, your breathing's not under conscious control. It's autonomic. But you stop and you breathe. And you just pulled your breathing from autonomic to conscious control. And when you pull that breathing under conscious control, everything else comes with it. Usually I teach square breathing, in 4, hold 4.
Box breathing, yeah.
Hold 4. But recent research, and I'm going to see if there's more research on this. The guy's done some good research. When you're not being physiologically pressed, the square breathing's fine. But if you don't have time to stop and breathe and hold and let it out when you're in the midst of a situation. So what they found out was you do this, and I like this. You breathe in, and then you breathe again. And you give it that second breath, and you do that. And it's that second hit that is really taking breathing from you're getting conscious control of your breathing, but you're getting a double hit of oxygen into the body. So you're not just breathing in, and you give it that second breath. Now, that's a conscious action where you override the autonomic nervous system. You're taking breathing under conscious control, but you're putting a double dose of oxygen into the lungs. And I think
Tony Robbins does that. I remember when I was going once to one of his seminars.
Other people are teaching that too. Yeah. And so when you're screaming for oxygen, you don't necessarily have that opportunity to stop and do a nice square breathing, but you can always give it that extra breath.
Is there anything we can do around inoculating ourselves to these types of stresses? Because they're still inevitably going to happen the next. I mean, hopefully for military, the next gunfight is a long way away, but certainly for first responders, firefighters, police officers, these things are going to happen on a weekly basis.
Yeah. And the more you do it and train the puppy inside, the more you learn to separate the memory from the emotions, the better you get at it.
Okay.
And you can do that, but then you'll be blindsided by something, or there's a cumulative growth of things that overwhelm you. We talked about the bathtub model. The stress comes in and it drains out but if it comes in faster than it can drain, then you hit the point where it overflows the bathtub. And you got to stop and you allow it to drain, and there's things, but all of those revolve around, cumulative stress. They can also be a post-traumatic stress or a post-traumatic injury. And again, counseling helps separating the memory from the emotions, working your way through those hard emotions, and then separating them from the physiological arousal is all part of the healing. But how do you inoculate yourself against assholes? Against people doing stupid stuff.
Yeah.
What I tell my cops is, I like Tootsie Rolls. They're individually wrapped and they stay clean. They're good in the heat. They're good in the cold. They remind me of Halloween candy. So I have a little baggie of Tootsie Rolls in the dash of your car. Every time somebody gives you the finger, I get a Tootsie Roll, right? Or they mouth off and they shout at you, I get a Tootsie Roll. And you actually take what they meant to harm you, turn it into something positive. So a cop told me, and this is brilliant. He said, Dave, I was pounding down Tootsie Rolls. He said, I'm just eating way too many Tootsie Rolls. He said, so I switched to Smarties. Let me grab my little, this is my little, I teach with a little document camera, and I put these under the document camera and zoom it in. We got that. Here's your little Tootsie Roll, right? And he said, no. He said, I switched to Smarties. He said, this is my little chill pill. He said, somebody gives me the finger, I get a Smartie. He said, here's the problem. You're never happy with just one Smartie. I want another one. So I drive around, wave and smile till somebody gives me the finger. I get another Smartie. And And what I just described to you is actual cognitive behavior therapy, CBT,
Okay.
cognitive behavior therapy, through your actions and your behaviors.
Yeah, your stimulus and response and
You
trying to...
rewire. What they thought that's going to make you mad. That's going to hurt you. No, I get it. And so you rewire the way you process this information. I control my body. My body doesn't control me. I make what you meant to hurt me to turn into something that gives me pleasure. And that's cognitive behavior therapy. As we use the Smarties or the Tootsie Rolls or whatever it is, I'm one of America's leading law enforcement trainers, and at the height of the defund the police, we were getting, I coined the term killology. Criminology is not about teaching people to be criminals. Killology is not about teaching me to kill, but you're the bitch teaching killology to all these murdering cops who are going to rape your dog and burn your family alive. I can't control what this idiot sent to me. What's the only thing I can control is how I choose to respond. And so
how do you
get a piece of candy and I win, You can see him, you evil bastard. It's EVR and you get a piece of candy. That's right. So who wins now, right? It's a big game. Life's a big game. You lose your temper, you lose the game. Yeah.
How do you reconcile this? It must be I'm interested. How do you reconcile a duty of protecting with like scriptural commands, the balance around thou shalt not kill, and how that is?
Thou shalt not kill is you shall not murder.
Okay.
All the Jewish translation of the original Hebrew translation shall not murder. Almost all of the modern translation. The King James Bible is a weak translation, grossly out of context, says shall not kill. You want to stick with the King James, go to Matthew 19:18, Greek, very precise language. Jesus is running through the commandments, and Jesus says, thou shalt do no murder. Now, if you just change that word from you shall not kill, which is clearly the intent, it completely in the context. People, sick people twist and distort it. Thou shalt not kill.
The etymology of words is they're so pregnant with meaning, aren't they?
It's a weak translation taken grossly out of context. But and I'll give you an angle on this now. It's Luke 22:36. One of the other Gospels says the exact same thing, right? The Last Supper's over. Jesus is about to be arrested and executed. And he said, I've told you before, don't even take your cloak. Now I tell you, buy your cloak, sell your cloak and buy a sword. What would Jesus do? One of the very last things he told us to do is arm ourselves. Now, just minutes later, the police come in to arrest Jesus. And Peter whips out his sword and cuts off one of the guy's ears. And Jesus says, no, this is just a cop doing his job. If you live by the sword, you die by the sword.
I want to take a minute to just tell you about something that I think you're going to be really interested in. Next September, firefighters from across the UK and Ireland will be traveling to Atlanta, Georgia for something truly special. It's the United for 9/11. It's the Memorial Stair Climb. Now, this isn't just any event. It's a once-in-a-generation tribute where 343 firefighters, one for every FDNY firefighter who gave their life on September 11th, will climb 110 floors in their honor. It's about more than just a physical challenge. It's about remembering sacrifice, pushing ourselves, and standing shoulder to shoulder across services and across nations. It's a chance to honor the legacy of 9/11, to pay tribute to our fallen firefighters, and to test your mental and physical strength, and to raise an awareness around mental health and resilience in the fire service. Whether you take part in this climb or not, support from home, or simply help spread the word, you can be part of it. This is about unity, remembrance, and respect. So if you want to learn more, head over to www.memorialstairclimb.co.uk or on Instagram, check out United_911climb. This is going to be something powerful. I hope you can make it. I hope you can support it. Now back to the show.
Yeah, you can use the sword for lawful defense, but you don't use it against authority like this. And he heals the guy's ear,
That was all I remember of where my name came from.
Yeah,
My
he
mum and
heals the
dad
guy
told
here,
me,
but
and he was
people
one
are
of the
taking that,
disciples.
if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Well, Jesus had just minutes prior told them to carry a sword. What did he tell them to carry a sword? And then tell you, no, he's saying if you use the sword against authority, you're going to die by the sword, rightfully applied by authority. So this whole thou shalt not kill thing is one of the sickest misrepresentation. And I use the example, World War II, we killed millions of the enemy in World War II, and the world would be a dark and desperate place if we hadn't fought and won in World War II. So did all of our pastors and priests and ministers and rabbis and chaplains, did they all preach, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not kill? The war began, kill those guys, it's cool, we changed our mind. No, that's not what happened. The understanding, the intent, the translation is shall not murder. And that's so taken out of context. And so I know you took a look at a book, Prayers and Promises for First Responders. It's a great little book that follows along with a lot of that, to just a daily kind of help. But another book that really, really helps, is this on spiritual combat. On spiritual combat right there, that kind of helps put all that together as well, and ties a lot of that in.
It's a remarkably difficult topic to wrestle with, I personally feel like I talk about zero responders, and I talk about the autonomy and proficiency of members of the public and society, because serving military personnel, first responders, they're there to catch people when they fall.
Yes.
It would be great if people fell less. Not because we don't want the job, but I always say we're just custodians of the fire department, of the fire service. It was here long before us, it will be here long after. Same with the military, same with the police. And there is almost a tragic reality to why any of them need to exist. What if I asked you to unfold the discipline and autonomy and sort of self-reliance of a general member of the public? Because it's great that they appreciate everything that you do, I do, men, women all over the world do as people, service personnel. But I sincerely hope you never need us.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. In America, there's an awful lot of work on church safety and church security. And around the globe, attacks on churches in 2024 was 700% increase, 2024 worldwide.
Yeah. I can't wrap my head around that one.
Yeah. And people say, well, don't you think God will keep you safe? Well, won't God keep you safe from fire? When you have a fire exit, you have a fire extinguisher and a fire alarm, throw those things away. Show us your faith. God will keep me safe from fire. That's insane. You need to have fire extinguishers and fire exits and fire alarms, and that's how God keeps you safe from fire. And in the same way, if you don't do the simple things to keep yourself safe from violence, then it's your own damn fault. Then you can't turn around and blame God. And whatever you can legally, lawfully do to protect yourself, you need to do. And if half the cost of a modern building goes into fire code, but when it comes to school safety, they won't lock the damn doors.
What do you think we should be teaching more of in schools? Like my sister's a deputy head teacher, my partner's a secondary school teacher. The education of our children is always going through an evolution, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on anything, but I wonder if we're best preparing children for life sometimes.
No, we're not. And we're making a step in the right direction with run, hide, fight. In English, run, hide, call. Oh, you can't fight. It's run, hide, fight. And if there's a great study, a Rand Institute study, rand.org, RAND.org, study it on interdiction in mass murders. And 12 out of 12 times, every single time, a group of individuals charged the killer, they were successful. Every single time a group of individuals charged an armed killer from multiple directions, they were successful. And so you're not helpless. This is 12 out of 12 times. Every time a group of unarmed people charged the killer from multiple directions, they were successful. Run, hide, fight. There's a time when you can fight. There's a time when you must fight. The very fact that England generally takes run, hide, fight and turns into run, hide, call is insane.
There's a lot of frustrations I have around the way that we do things.
I think if people are changing, we don't say a fire. Well, we run from the fire, we hit the fire alarm, and we use the fire extinguisher. We don't say, no, don't use the fire extinguisher. Just call 911 and run away. Look at our response to fire is very rational. We teach stop, drop, and roll. We teach run, hide, fight. We teach use the fire extinguisher. We teach use the tools that are available. And yet, when it comes to violence, somehow we're helpless, and we're not supposed to use violence. And so, in America, there's this drive to say there's a time when you can fight, there's a time when you must fight. And we're teaching run, hide, fight to our kids from the youngest days. And I think it's a very positive movement across the board. I don't know. Yeah.
I want to be respectful of our time. I'm just glancing. We're hit an hour already. We have a lot of leaders from the sector listening to the podcast, and these people, in fact, there was a lady, Anne Millington, I had on the other day. She spoke about leaders as gardeners and about nurturing and cultivating. We're going through a tremendous turnover of staff here in the UK. I think maybe similar in the UK and the US. It's like a 30-year turnover where a lot of the old guard leave, similar to what you spoke about Vietnam. There was a period there where there was no one that had armed combat that was in those training schools. We're at that point now where I personally feel we've got brand new leaders with lesser experience struggling to embolden, inspire, give faith, direction, and guidance to some of our service personnel. As you spend a lot of time at high-level strategic conversations, what do you think leaders should be focusing on to empower our first responders for the next 10 or 15 years? Because as I've already alluded to, society seems to be holding on by its threads, and we need to have police, fire, paramedics, military, who are confident that they're going to be looked after by their organizations, so that they can step into society with a sense of belief that they're going to be supported in what they do. What should leaders be doing to help best support their teams?
If I could get 30 seconds with somebody in power, I would tell them this. The situation is much, much worse than it looks. And we need to throw a lot of money at the problem. I mean, that's the Western way. That's how we won the Cold War. That's how we won World War II. We outspent them, right? The whole power of the British Empire, we threw money at it. That's how we won, the pandemic. We threw trillions of dollars.
That's why this whole defund the police thing is just absolute madness to me.
It's insane. It's insanity.
It's insanity.
Well,
I don't even understand the concept. Yeah. I'm not going to get into that, but
here's the thing now. We don't even know the score in this game. We measure the problem by the murder rate, but the murder rate is being held down by medical technology.
That's the lag metric, isn't it? We're treating a cause rather than the symptom.
Tourniquets alone have cut the murder rate to a quarter of what it would otherwise be. Everybody has a tourniquet. Slap on a tourniquet, save a crime victim's life, you prevented a murder. So if you take away all the tourniquets and just quadruple the number of murdered people, just that one thing alone. So just like we have inflation-adjusted dollars, we need medically adjusted murders. When we do that, it will transform the way we see the situation. We are lying to ourselves about the problem. We've got a scoreboard up there, and the scoreboard is a number of dead people, and it's a lie. And we've got to stand up and scream from the mountainside that if somebody tried to compare money over any period of time without allowing for inflation, your BS meter would go off instantly. But we compare the murder rate over time without ever even allowing for medical technology.
Yeah, you can't do those in isolation.
It's the most horrendous lie. If I could do one thing to make people realize how stinking bad it is and how essential it is to throw money at this problem, it would be to understand how bad it really is. And I can say it in one sentence. Medical technology is holding down the murder rate. Just like we have inflation-adjusted dollars, we need medically adjusted murder. Boom. That one thing right there. That one thing would
Well, that's powerful.
transform how we see the situation, how desperately bad it is, how badly we need to throw resources at this problem. And first responders should be the best paid, best qualified, and best trained people on the planet. And then the baseline of every civilization is public safety. We've all heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the foundation of every building. We're safe and secure and out of danger. Well, I call it the social contract. The pharaohs, the Romans, the British Empire. Here's the deal. Here's the social contract. You obey the law, you pay your taxes, and we'll help keep you safe. Ain't that the deal? If we can't keep them safe, why would they obey your damn law?
That is the whole element, isn't it? I remember Simon Sinek speaking about it. Like we reward the alpha of first choice of meat, first choice of mate, because when the danger happens, we expect we expect the people looking after us, in this analogy, government or first, we expect them to run towards the danger.
Yes.
And we're paying the taxes, we're doing our bit, and we almost feel betrayed because we still don't feel safe.
Yes.
We don't feel like this proverbial alpha is actually going to look after us.
Yes. Our government has failed us. And again, we cover up the magnitude of the problem with medical technology rather than recognizing how desperately we need to be putting resources in people who put their lives on the line for us every day.
Amen to that, brother. Yes, Lieutenant Colonel Grossman, thank you so much for your time, my friend.
My pleasure, Pete.
I know you're so remarkably busy. I'll probably never get a chance to speak to you again, but please send my tremendous love to your family, to all of your colleagues out there. And I've really, really, really enjoyed our conversation today, brother. Thank you so much.
Let's do it again sometime. And let's remember to talk about the whole global epidemic of sleep deprivation. And another whole piece of the equation. The link between sleep deprivation and mental illness is huge. You can cause mental illness with sleep deprivation.
And our first responders are the most underslept. Why We Sleep, amazing book.
Yep.
Grossman, we will pin that for the next one, brother. Thank you so much for your time.
Good. God bless you, Pete. Stay hard, stay safe, stay in the fight.
Well, that's it for today, folks. Hope you took a lot away from that episode. We started the Firefighters podcast to develop, inspire, connect, motivate, represent, and most importantly, celebrate the world of incredible emergency services operators and the wider sector through this series of wide-ranging conversations. We really love creating this podcast and bringing it to so many people. Did you know you can also find these on YouTube? We do a lot of video podcasts now. You can head over to our YouTube page and follow, subscribe there. And as a final ask from us, whatever platform you're on, please rate the podcast. It really helps us as a key performance indicator to reach more and more people. I've been your host, Pete Wakefield. This has been the Firefighters Podcast. And wherever you are in the world, please stay safe, be happy, live with intention, and where possible, please remember and support your firefighters and first responders. I'll see you next time.